Sir, you will need to go through secondary screening. That thing on your leg is setting off all sorts of alarms, and frankly, it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie, not a prosthetic. The TSA agent chuckled, gesturing towards Sergeant John M. McMillan's advanced prosthetic leg with open amusement. Mac 70, his face tight with barely concealed anger, replied, "It is a service-issued prosthetic, a result of an IED in Afghanistan. There is nothing amusing about it." The agent just smirked. "Whatever you say, pal." Secondary screening. End of the line. 8 minutes later, as Mac endured the humiliating extended pat-down, the flight's captain, a stern-faced former Air Force pilot, personally walked back from the cockpit to the security checkpoint. If you believe heroes deserve respect, not ridicule, for their sacrifices, type honor below. Sergeant John M. McMillan, United States Army retired. New airports were a necessary evil. The crowds, the queues, the impersonal nature of it all. It was a far cry from the structured, purposeful world he had known for 30 years as an explosive ordnance disposal EOD specialist. His current challenge was not disarming a complex device, but navigating the often bewildering civilian world with the advanced, state-of-the-art prosthetic leg that had replaced the one he had lost to an IED in Helmand Province. The prosthetic was a marvel of engineering, lightweight titanium and carbon fiber with microprocessors that allowed for a surprisingly natural gait. But it also tended to set off every metal detector known to man, leading to inevitable delays and too often uncomfortable scrutiny. Today, Mac was flying to his granddaughter's college graduation. It was a proud moment, one he would not miss for the world. He had arrived at the airport early, prepared for the usual security dance. He wore comfortable travel slacks that partially covered the prosthetic, a neat collared shirt, and a light jacket. He carried his military identification and a letter from his Veterans Affairs doctor explaining the nature of his prosthetic just in case. He approached the TSA checkpoint, mentally bracing himself. As expected, the walk-through metal detector blared as he passed through. He was directed to the side towards a young, rather smug-looking Transportation Security Administration agent named Miller. "All right, sir. Step over here," Agent Miller said, his tone already laced with a bored impatience. "Looks like we have got a live one." He gestured towards Mac's left leg. "What is the story with that, huh? Trying to smuggle some spare parts onto the plane." Mac took a steadying breath. "It is a prosthetic leg, officer. Medically necessary. I have documentation." He reached for his carry-on to retrieve the letter. Miller waved a dismissive hand. Yeah, everyone has got documentation. But that thing," he pointed directly at the visible upper portion of the prosthetic where it joined Mac's thigh, its sleek metallic components partially visible beneath his trouser leg, "is setting off alarms like crazy. Looks more like a Terminator leg than something from the Veterans Affairs." He chuckled at his own joke, then turned to a colleague at the next station. "Hey, Jen, come check out RoboCop here." Jen, an older, more seasoned agent, glanced over, offered Mac an apologetic grimace, then shook her head at Miller and went back to her duties. Miller, undeterred by his colleague's lack of amusement, turned back to Mac, his smirk widening. "Seriously though, what is that? Some kind of experimental weapon? You building a Decepticon in your garage?" The casual cruelty, the public mockery of something that represented so much pain and sacrifice, hit Mac hard. He felt the familiar heat rise in his cheeks. "It is a prosthetic issued by the Department of Defense because I lost my leg serving this country in Afghanistan," Mac stated, his voice low and dangerously quiet. "It allows me to walk. There is nothing amusing or suspicious about it." Miller, however, was enjoying his perceived power too much to back down. "Afghanistan, huh? Sure. And I am a secret agent. Look, buddy, rules are rules. That prosthetic needs a full secondary screening, visual inspection, explosive trace swabs, the works. And you can bet we're going to take a real close look at all those fancy moving parts. Would not want any malfunctions at 30,000 feet, would we?" He gestured Mac towards the frosted glass cubicle used for private screenings, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Have a seat. This might take a while. And try not to rust." Mac bit back the angry retort that clawed at his throat. He knew losing his temper would only make things worse, would only give Miller more ammunition. He walked stiffly to the secondary screening area, his real leg aching from the tension, his prosthetic feeling like a lead weight, a beacon for unwanted attention. He endured the humiliating process, the repetitive questions, the intrusive pat down by another agent who, to his credit, was professional and respectful, unlike Miller, the swabbing of his leg and his belongings. Miller hovered nearby, occasionally making snide comments to other agents, clearly relishing Mac's discomfort. Still think it might transform into a laser cannon. Mac heard him whisper, followed by a muffled snicker. Each minute felt like an hour. Mac worried about missing his flight, about disappointing his granddaughter. He glanced at his watch. Boarding for his flight would be starting soon. He tried to explain again the nature of his prosthetic, the importance of his travel, but Miller just waved him off. We will be done when we are done. Passenger safety is our priority, even if it means some people miss their important trips. The implication was clear. Mac, with his suspicious leg, was a potential threat. His needs secondary to the arbitrary enforcement of procedure by an agent on a power trip. As the secondary screening finally agonizingly concluded, with nothing found, as Mac knew there would not be, he felt a profound sense of degradation. He gathered his belongings, his hands trembling slightly with suppressed anger. He had just enough time to make it to his gate if he hurried. As he was refastening his belt, a commotion started near the main Transportation Security Administration checkpoint. He heard a new voice, calm, but with an unmistakable ring of command, cutting through the usual airport hub. I am looking for a Transportation Security Administration agent named Miller. I understand he was just involved in screening a passenger with a prosthetic leg. A Colonel John McMillan. Where is he? Agent Miller, who had been smirking to himself near the exit of the secondary screening area, suddenly froze. His face went pale. He recognized that authoritative tone. All Transportation Security Administration agents knew that voice, or voices like it. The voice of someone who outranked everyone in the immediate vicinity. The man who strode through the checkpoint, having bypassed the regular lines with a flash of impressive credentials to the checkpoint supervisor, was Captain David Thorne, the lead pilot from Mac's flight, Flight 217 to Denver. Captain Thorne was in his late 40s, ex-Air Force, with a ramrod-straight posture and eyes that missed nothing. He was known for his meticulous professionalism and his fierce advocacy for passengers, especially veterans. He had been alerted by a gate agent, who in turn had been quietly informed by the more senior Transportation Security Administration agent, Jen, about Miller's unprofessional conduct towards a passenger with a prosthetic. Jen had recognized Mac's quiet dignity and Miller's escalating bullying and had discreetly passed along Mac's name and flight number. Located Miller quickly. Agent Miller, he asked, his voice dangerously calm. I am Captain Thorne, pilot of Flight 217. I have received a report concerning your interaction with one of my passengers, Colonel McMillan, a decorated combat veteran who lost his leg in service. Miller stammered. Sir, I was just following procedure. His prosthetic was unusual. It set off alarms. Unusual. Captain Thorne cut him off, his eyes like ice. It is a state-of-the-art military-grade prosthetic, Agent Miller. The kind issued to soldiers who have made extreme sacrifices. Did you verify his documentation? Did you offer him the courtesy and respect due to any passenger, let alone a wounded warrior? We did the secondary screening, sir, as required. Miller faltered. And did that secondary screening require mockery? Did it require likening his prosthetic to a Terminator leg? Did it require you to publicly humiliate a man who has endured more than you can likely comprehend? Captain Thorne's voice, though still not raised, carried such weight that other Transportation Security Administration agents and nearby passengers fell silent, watching the confrontation. Miller looked terrified. I did not mean any disrespect, sir. Your actions, Agent Miller, suggest otherwise, Captain Thorne stated flatly. He then spotted Mac, who was now approaching tentatively, having heard the captain mention his name. Captain Thorne's expression softened immediately as he turned to Mac. Colonel McMillan, Captain David Thorne, please accept my profound apologies for the disgraceful treatment you have received from this agent, and by extension the system he represents today. It is unacceptable. Mac, surprised by the pilot's direct intervention, managed a weary nod. Appreciate that, Captain. Just trying to get to my granddaughter's graduation. And you will, Colonel, Thorne assured him. He then turned back to Miller, his voice once again like steel. Agent Miller, You will personally apologize to Colonel Macmillan for your unprofessional and deeply offensive conduct. Now, Miller, under the combined weight of the captain's glare and the silent condemnation of his colleagues, mumbled a barely audible apology to Mac, his eyes fixed on the floor. Louder, Captain Thorne commanded. Miller repeated his apology slightly more clearly this time, though it dripped with resentment rather than sincerity. That is not good enough, Thorne said, then addressed the Transportation Security Administration supervisor, who had hurried over, looking alarmed. Supervisor, I am filing a formal complaint against Agent Miller for unprofessional conduct and harassment of a disabled veteran. I expect a full investigation and appropriate disciplinary action. Furthermore, I want a review of your entire team's sensitivity training regarding passengers with disabilities and prosthetics. The supervisor nodded quickly, profusely assuring the captain it would be handled. Captain Thorne then turned back to Mac. Colonel, your original seat was in economy, I believe. Mac nodded. My granddaughter booked it. Well, Captain Thorne said with a slight smile. As the captain of this flight, I have some discretion regarding seating assignments, especially for distinguished passengers who have been unduly inconvenienced. We happen to have an open seat in first class. It is yours if you would accept it with my compliments and the deepest respect of the entire crew. Mac was taken aback. Captain, that is very generous, but not necessary. It is absolutely necessary, Colonel, Thorne insisted gently. Consider it a small token of amends for the ordeal you were just put through. Please allow me to personally escort you to the gate and onto the aircraft. And so, Sergeant John M. Macmillan, who had been mocked and humiliated by a Transportation Security Administration agent just minutes before, was personally escorted through the remainder of the airport and onto Flight 217 by the aircraft's captain. He was settled into a spacious first-class seat, offered refreshments, and treated with quiet, profound respect by the flight attendants, who had clearly been briefed by the captain. Agent Miller was immediately pulled from duty at the checkpoint, pending the investigation Captain Thorne had initiated. Word of the incident, a pilot confronting a Transportation Security Administration agent over the mistreatment of a veteran with a prosthetic leg and then personally upgrading him to first class, spread like wildfire among the airport staff and eventually through passenger accounts on social media. The Transportation Security Administration issued a formal apology to Mac later that day and announced a review of its training protocols concerning interactions with travelers with disabilities and medical devices. Mac arrived at his granddaughter's graduation rested and on time. The unpleasantness at the airport of fading, though still clinging memory. He never sought special treatment, only common decency and respect. That day he received it not from the system initially designed to provide security with dignity, but from an individual within that broader travel ecosystem who understood that true honor and true service sometimes required stepping out of the cockpit to right a wrong on the ground. Because the scars of service, visible or not, deserve reverence, not ridicule. And sometimes the best upgrades in life are the ones that restore a little faith in people. Subscribe to my channel if you think our injured heroes should get nothing less than top-level honor every day.